Alrighty, let's get that music going. Move this window over here. And give it a brief moment to make sure that my frames are not exploding. Looking pretty good. And I can see my own stream, which is handy. Alright. So, just doing a quick... for a couple hours, if anyone is interested, and if they are not, that's fine too. Alright, and then we will move the mod window over here. Looking good? It is. Okay. So, what we have right now, I've got a bit of a, as you can tell, a little bit of a see-through on the code window, so you can sort of see down here on the Unity window. And in the console for the Unity window, we have a few objects that I'm going to assign null values to, simply so we don't get that warning anymore. And then I will walk you through what has been done since the... vector 2.0? Is that actually not what it'll... Oh, no, this is a transform, so no. And then move that slightly further away, because I can tell I'm peaking a little bit. Yeah. Equals null. Alright. So, what we do is we have a player prefab that we've created, because we don't want it necessarily in the scene all the time. We instantiate that prefab, then we grab the component of the player component that is on it, and we move it over and assign it to the player variable. Then we change the name, because otherwise it'll be called player clone, and in all my debugs it'll be hideous, and I need clean debugs. Finally, we'll assign its transform position to the spawn point transform, which you can actually see in... Let's see if I can move my mouse over it. Oh no, I can't from that window. But here... Yeah, so this guy right here is actually not our player. This is a spawn point where our player will be generated and placed. This way, whenever I go and consolidate all of these assets, I can just duplicate and move the spawn point wherever instead of having this player prefab everywhere. And we can close all that. And then let's see, what else do we got going on? Well, we have a virtual camera. There's only one in the scene. We find that camera using find object of type. It's not a super efficient option, but because we're only doing it in the start one time, and anytime you switch levels, I suppose, it doesn't really matter. And then finally we have, oh, you know, I actually haven't checked to see if my voice is going to be synced with my video, because I did a new scene. Oh well, act like you don't notice. What is it, properties? That totally slipped my mind, but I guess I don't care too much for now. Yeah, no sync offset. Oh well. Oh well. Just ignore the video of me. Yeah, and then we tell the virtual camera to follow the player's transform. Alright, with all that out of the way, we can now see it happening in game. Once it compiles and stuff. Any day, lad, any day. There we go. So as you can see, the itchy face. The little character or little player, he's on the screen. He's got an idle animation, which is currently running whenever he's standing around. He'll occasionally look at you, and then he'll look forward. Then we can move around, and when we move around, you'll see that he is animated. Not only is he animated, he can go up hills, and he also... What am I thinking here? I don't know. Lost my train of thought. But regardless, he can jump, go through platforms. If he's on the platforms, it'll carry him along, which is good. And then, yeah, you can walk off platforms. You can fall through them if you want. You can jump. Obviously, you can tell there's some animation issues with if you're running or falling and you press sideways, you'll occasionally see walking. But I don't know. I don't think that really matters all that much, so I am not going to concern myself with it for now. It's a very unimportant problem, to be perfectly blunt. It's just not that big of a deal. With that out of the way, that means we now have the player. We've got their jump controls. If I had a controller here, we could do that. That would also work. Right now, the default for jumping, does it show you these windows? It does not. The default for project settings, can you see that? We'll give it a brief moment while it catches up. Yes, you can. Okay. So jump, as you can see, is registered to... says joystick button 3, which currently on a Xbox controller is the Y key. And if you've never jumped with the top middle button of a controller, it is a uniquely miserable experience. So we will be eventually changing these. I'm actually, one of these days, we'll have a whole video on setting up key assignments. You know, like changing your jump from Y to B or to A or whatever. That's going to be all UI stuff. For now, we don't need to do that. What we do want to do next is we want to do a bit of code that is currently gone from this version that did exist in the previous one before I nuked it, which is collectibles, things, being able to pick something up. So we're going to go in and do that, and I'll show you how easy it is in Unity to make, what do I say, for lack of a better word, just make stuff. Yeah. Yeah, well, you could create folders. Generally, folders are made by just doing empty game objects. Make sure to reset their positions to 0. Otherwise, when you add things into them, you're going to hate your life, and you don't want that. When you're making games, you want to enjoy your life. It's going to be a 2D object. We're just going to pick sprite, which again, I know you can't see my drop downs. I'll figure out some way to fix that later that doesn't involve sharing my whole screen, because that's scary. You never know if you'll open chat or something. When you create a new sprite, you will see that it creates a game object that has a transform on it, which will be your positional data. We're going to reset that positional data to 0s, just because we'll move it later. You can double click on it to see exactly where it is. As you can see right now, it's right here. We are going to give it a sprite. In this case, we want that sprite to be coin. So now, as you can tell, we have a coin. There's a few ways you can layer sprites. One is to screw with their Z position. That works depending on the kind of camera. Another one is to adjust the sorting layer, which is what I'm going to be doing. Currently, we have only the default sorting layer. Once I've made a few objects before we start creating scenes, I'm going to go in and add more layers. We don't need them for now, though. That's a level of fancy that's beyond us. All right, next we're going to add a circle collider, because this is, as you can tell, a circle. And what else? We probably want an animator on it, and I'll show you why we want that in a brief moment. The circle collider may end up on a child level, but we'll see. I'm not sure how the collider is going to react with me doing what I'm about to do to this poor lad. Actually, yeah, so let's create an empty layer, and we're going to move the sprite renderer onto that. Copy. Paste, component is new. We're going to delete the one that's on the main layer, keep the circle collider on there for now. And we've got zeroed out positions. So basically, the reason we're doing this is so that we can affect the art for the coin without impacting the collider. Because the way we're going to make the coin look like it's rotating is we're going to shrink it down to 0 and then make it big again. And if you make a collider with a width of 0, that will cause some of the math to be dividing by an infinite number, which will really upset your game. That's right? Collectable. Collectible. That's fine. English, it's a language. You'd think it would be collectable because it's something you're able to collect, but whatever. We'll run with this. That's fine. We're gonna add an animator, which I believe is all we're gonna need for that lad. Yes. And then we will go into animations. We are currently on this sprite with this animator, so when we click create, it's going to ask me where to put that. I'm going to say in the animations, and we will add a folder for collectibles. And in here, we will do coin idle. And that's just what we'll call it, because that's all it is a coin idle animation. We can go in and hit record. And on the first frame, we're going to leave the scale as is and create a, is it just that lad? Well, screw it. We'll add a property. Transform. Oh, actually, yeah, that's exactly what I want to be able to do. We go into the collectible, and can we add the property from there, or are you going to require me to change it? Huh, that works. So we got our first frame, and then we'll say after half a second, we'll have it go down to a width of 0. And then another half a second, we'll have it go back up to a width of 1. And then when we play that... Huh? Kinda convincing. Perhaps a little bit too slow. Another way you could do this animation is you could actually have a few different sprites and just cycle through those. I don't want to. So we won't. You will also notice that while we are rotating this coin, the collider will not be rotating or shrinking. This will mean that all the logic we'll be doing for this collider to make it interact with the player will work just dandy. Okay. Which you're going to hear me say a lot. I always fill dead air with okay rather than hum. Although I probably say hum too. Or Regardless. So now we have our collectible, and we could probably call it coin. We might as well, but we're gonna first save it as a prefab. Saving prefabs is real easy. You just drag the object over. So we got our base collectible. We probably, do we need a controller on the collectible itself? My thought process here is, we could just have the player class handle all of the collection logic, or at least send it all to the game controller. Or we could have classes on the collectibles themselves. Realistically, I can't imagine either having any major benefit in terms of performance that you would actually notice. But I mean, if I'm wrong later, I could just fix it. Sure. Okay. That's what we'll do. We'll just fix it in post. Alrighty, so we got our collectible. This one we're going to call... First we're going to probably add the collectible class onto it. We're just simply going to call it collectible if it lets me.
You can do it.
Please compile. Can't wait to get a new computer. This one's actually pretty good, but modern Unity, you can't tell right now because it's not showing you. It whines about a lot of stuff. And takes just a general long amount of time to do certain things. I don't know if it's just their way of trying to like protect themselves from things breaking. I don't know, man. I don't know. We're going to put it into its namespace, which is going to be rico.collectible. Namespaces aren't necessarily required, but they do allow you to keep all of your code sort of contained in a space. You could imagine it as literal buckets where you have data that doesn't interact with other data on accident unless you really want it to. And that's kind of where we want to be. So we got that class. We also could probably add... Would we want to do a layer or a tag? I don't know what you're complaining about, homie. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to ignore you for now. That's the pro strat, is just to ignore Unity errors. That's what they teach you in school, I'm sure. Okay, where was I before I got distracted? Right. So we could add a tag, or we could go with a layer. We apparently already have a layer from when I was previously doing stuff. So you know what? We're gonna just make it a layer. I'm gonna apply all. So now all future collectibles will be of type, or of layer collectible. That also allows us in the physics 2D layer to determine what can interact with what else. Because I believe this is all done by layers. Yes. So we could say, for instance, that collectibles cannot interact with things like platforms and whatnot. If you so desired, I suppose. Well, what will we be doing next? Does the player have a... It does not have a rigid body, which means one of our lads does need a rigid body. You could get around that with raycasting, but I don't want to. So, yeah, I could actually put that on the player, and then I would only have to have it on the player. I don't think that'll have any negative impact, because we don't actually need the rigid body for basically anything but triggering. Turn that. Right, we do need that. We don't need the rigid body for anything but triggering on collider enter and on collider exits, etc., etc., etc. So now that should have a rigid body 2D on it. We don't care about any of this other stuff, except for, I guess, the sleep mode. Never sleep, please. Go with continuous because it's one object. What could it hurt? Famous last words. Okay, now that we have done that, let's pin player, and while we're at it, we will go into options, go down to tab lists, or tabs and windows, and tell it to show pinned in a separate area. So now we got those up top, which will make it easier for me to get to. We can turn off these debugs because now it's all working as I was hoping it would. And then we can close a few things. Checky, checky, calculaty, calculaty, how, blah, blah, blah. Things have happened. Private void on collider on trigger enter 2D. Because I believe trigger is on the collider, it is not on the rigid body object. Debug dot, let's say collision dot transform dot set active game object. Set active is false. The idea here is to be able to quickly test if our logic is sound. We're going to try it once with the rigid body on, and then we're going to disable the rigid body and try it again. Because I don't actually know if... That error doesn't really matter. I don't know if they fix that in... Oh, gotta make it a trigger. Is trigger. Ooh. Did I save my work? I did. On trigger enter. Why wouldn't that work? I don't think this needs to be a trigger, right? No, didn't think so. Well, let's find out. On trigger enter 2D, not working. Wow, first result. And they're gonna tell me that one of them needs a rigid body, I'm assuming. Yes, we're there. Oh. we won't be putting the rigid body on our player because the object cannot be kinematic. Huh!
My friend, the comeback.
So we'll give it a gravity scale of 0 so it doesn't go anywhere. That's fine. That's all fine. And I guess the player will just remove that. We'll check this one more time. Oh, hold on, it says. Okay, and then we set this as trigger. Most interesting. So now we do have a body. Continuous. No. Never sleep. No. Doesn't need to interpolate. There's no reason for that. And I am doing it on trigger enter. And it shouldn't need to be an override. On trigger enter 2D is called when a collider 2D enters. Well, we could also try private void on collider enter 2D and give that a shot. And while we're at it, we should probably... No, we shouldn't need to do that. I had to think about something for a second. Collectible... And neither of these is triggering? Ooh, curiosity is peaking for me. I'm gonna close Visual Studio real quick and then reopen it. Now I realize that means I need to fix it in my window, but uno momento, por favor. Set it to that, and then we'll set it back to Unity Visual Studio. I just noticed how long my... There we go. That was silly. Ah. Yeah. That's what was going on. It was not saving my work. Interesting. Can't say I've ever seen that before. Let's try that again, team. That was interesting. On trigger enter 2D. Save. Fascinating. Yeah, I can't say I've ever seen that before. Well, while we're waiting for it to get done, transform.gameObject.setActive is false. That was genuinely intriguing. Now go back over here. Okay, I do see it saved. And we'll stop the program because... Okay, so that shouldn't work because it's not a trigger yet. Set it to trigger. Hey! That's what it was. Okay, we're going to turn it back on. And we're going to actually remove the rigid body. Try again. Okay, so it does not work. But if we give the player the rigid body and set him to kinematic. Hey! Okay, so we'll put it back on the player. Whoa. That was terrifying. I had an extra window open. Man, just not saving. That's creepy. I'm gonna put that on the list of things I don't want to see happen too much more. Continuous, never sleep. Story of my life. Okay, so we got our collectible. It animates. It gets destroyed. We can also check if it has a component of type collectible. And if it does, matter of fact, I think you can do collectible. Sure, equals null. And then we would say collectible equals that, which should assign it and then check and see if it's null. And what we'll do is, if that's the case, we'll do this. And over here, we'll write a function. We'll say public void collected. Debug.log. I've been collected. How exciting. Come back over here. And in fact, we'll get rid of this and we'll just call collectible.collected. Go into that and have it turn off here. Because we can. Save in both areas, come back over to Unity, wait for 6 hours for it to finish whatever it's doing. I hope they figure that stuff out in future updates for, what is this, 2020? 2020. I'm actually really curious about this error. I'm sure it's already been reported, but what is this? Grass edge dot wake up. Grass edge wake up. Let's see what people say. Oh, people say that it sounds like you have to reopen or reinstall Unity. Well, we're not going to do that today. Like I said, you just ignore it and it won't hurt you. It doesn't have the power to. Or maybe it was my things were saving. Time will tell. We have our collectible class. That's all saved. So now we'll say collectible coin, because I don't think we need anything more than that. And we can drag that over as well. Original prefab variant. Ooh! I have not seen that before. How neat. That must be something new. So we'll make it smaller. Whoa! Not quite that small. And that shouldn't impact the actual animation because it's relative. It's a local transformation on the child rather than the parent. And now we've got this adorable little coin, which we can. We can't collect it at the moment. Let's see why. Is it because I didn't save the player rigid body? No, I did. It's because we didn't save the circle collider as a trigger. So we'll do that. Apply all. And we'll actually go into the collectible sub-object and do that there as well. And that should have saved, right? Yes. Okay. Hey, he's been collected. That's good. So that takes care of the collectibles. We could make that collectible function either virtual or abstract. In fact, we'll just do that now. We'll make it a virtual so that things later can inherit from it or extend from it, however you want to word it. And then those things can add other functionality on top of the base functionality that will eventually exist in it. It will likely be an event that is triggered, which will be listened to by the game controller, which maybe we'll do in a different video. But let's see. Now we need to make a few functions. Inside of game controller, one of the things we need to consider is what to do when the player dies. So we're going to say void probably a public. Yeah, it's probably gonna be public void. Public void respawn. And what do we do when the player respawns? Hello, Grouchtacular. But what do we do when the player respawns? We will place the player back at the start position. Spawn point dot transform dot position. Oh, howdy! That's actually a pretty great name for you. That's funny. Hope you're having a good day. All right, so we added in this. We have installed on this project a wonderful set of tools from a company called Cyrenex, I believe, and they allow us to create buttons. You can see that now up here. It's otherwise known as Odin Inspector. It's fantastic. So we're gonna make a button called Respawn, and when we press that button, it's gonna send the player back to the starting location. We also have to stop the game because you really shouldn't edit code while the game is running, but I always forget. Okay, so we load it in. Gotta be so patient. Oh yeah, you can get... Odin Inspector is probably my absolute favorite plugin that you can possibly buy, but there's tons of stuff. Most of them I think are garbage, but Odin Inspector allows you to do things like, see this button here once it loads? This button allows me to like go over here and press respawn, and now my guy respawns. So yay, jump over. I fall, I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. What am I gonna do about this? Respawn. That's what we're gonna do. So it allows you to test code extremely quickly. You don't even need to hook in events, or any sort of thing on it. You can just immediately make a button and test if your code works, which is so good. I don't know how any company works without Odin Inspector, just because it's night and day for Unity work. Maybe. So Odin Inspector is not what I'm doing to be able to immediately run the game. It simply allows me to edit this, which is called the inspector window. So you have this is your game scene. This is your, for lack of a better word, scene. You can actually go into 3D and see how I have objects layered in the scene right now. As you can see, these things are actually behind the player object, and strangely behind the wall. Now, the reason this works is because there's multiple ways to layer objects, and the way I'm layering sprites in this is by using the order and layer rather than the Z position. In most cases, I actually goofed on a few things, so we'll fix that. We'll fix that later, because it all really should be one layer with maybe some slight Z offset for convenience. You shouldn't really, yeah. These red arrows are actually a gizmo that I'm drawing so that I can tell where the platforms are going, and this is one of a number of really good ideas that a Swedish guy whose name I am forgetting taught me recently. Not personally, he made YouTube videos and I watched him. But no, I've actually been playing with Unity professionally and personally for between 5 and 7 years. Yes. So it's been a while, which makes my confusion from time to time all the sillier. Okay, well now we know what that error is related to. It is the animator losing its pants. Open prefab. So let me close Unity real quick and see if we can fix that issue, because that's the animator breaking. Oh, yeah, this is definitely my first time trying to make a platformer. And I will tell you what, it is, even after following the guide that I was going through, it's a very complicated process involving math that is much, much higher than anything I did in school, which is largely because I was too busy playing video games, which ultimately panned out fantastically professionally, but it does mean when you're trying to do fun things like platformers in your free time, it's no gusta. So all we're waiting for in the moment is for Unity to re-import and open so that I can get into the animator and we can make a respawn animation. I want to make it a blinky blinky like they do in I can't think of a platform off the top of my head, but like the kind of the damage you take in something like DuckTales. Yeah, I mean, as you've noticed with your own personal project, the problem with this sort of stuff is that once you get done with work, at least with my previous job, I would be totally burned out by the time I got home. But luckily, my current job, even though it's been challenging recently, is not killing me in the same way. Which is good. It means I can actually do this, because this is the most I've put into a personal project in ages. Now, we need to go back to the animator for the player. As you can see down here, I realize it's a little bit covered up, but that's because I'm just trying to keep everything in the window at the same time. I'm not really good at alt-tabbing back and forth between things. We have 3 states for our player. We have a walking state, an idle state, and a jumping state. You transfer between these states using triggers, conditionals, triggers, booleans, natural exits, that sort of thing. What we want to add is we want to make an animation where the player blinks on and off. Now, I haven't done a lot of have chat up while you have the stream full screen. I honestly don't know. My knowledge of Twitch is just, I'm barely knowledgeable enough to know how to, like, run it. Yeah, that's basically it. I just found out that there's a mod window last week after using it for like a year. And it gives me all sorts of handy info. Like, apparently I banned somebody 2 years ago. Only one person, but I now know. I don't even remember it. Yeah, so this gives you conditionals, exit times, that sort of thing. What we want is we want to be able to have the player blink on and off. The challenge there is I'm not sure how we're going to blend that into these other animations, because again, I'm not experto animations man, but we'll see what we can figure out. We'll create a new clip. We will call it Respawn. Because I'm a monster, I just realized... Oh no, I remembered. Okay, good for me. I was gonna say because I'm a monster, Nope, I was wrong. Ah, my casing is different here and here. I'll fix that later. That's awful. Okay, back to the player. So we got our respawn. There's a few ways you can do this. The easiest way to me is just to turn on the record button and then do the things you want to do to what you want to change. So what we want to change is we want to set we could either set the alpha or we could literally turn off the sprite. So we're going to just do that. And we're going to try it at different speeds and see what that looks like. This should look pretty spastic. Or not at all. Why would that not show? I'm changing the player sprite. Oh! I'm an idiot. It's because we're in the wrong window. We were looking at the spawn point object. Okay, so yeah, that would give you seizures, so let's make that a bit longer. Maybe a little bit slower. Because, yeah, I'm not trying to kill people here. Yeah, that'll work for now. We can always make it different later. But basically, now we have an animation. And we want to figure out, because again, I genuinely don't know how to blend two animations. So let's look this up real quick. And if I can't find it immediately, I'm going to just come back to this later. Ooh, blend trees. That sounds terrifying. Checking the manual real quick. Oh my lord. Okay, I'm going to do that off video, and then I will explain it the next time I have time. But you've seen the animation, so we do have it. for now, we're just going to let our little guy teleport back to the start position. Oh, thank you. That just gave me a heart attack, but I appreciate it. All right, so we've got our collectibles. We added an animation that for now we're not going to touch. And I just noticed that our controller for the collectibles is called New Sprite, so we're going to fix that in a sec. Let's see here, stats. Wow, 600 frames per second. That's a bit high. We'll want to fix that later. I can't recall how hard it is to set to limit the frame rate in editor, but it'll definitely need to be done. Okay, so we got a collectible. Next, since I know Lawman is obsessed with doors, let's work on a door. Because then he'll see that and he'll start praising me for my work. And I'm a weak man. Praise gets you everywhere with me. So we've got our door. We don't know if we're gonna animate it yet. And I'll be honest, it's not looking like a whole lot at this moment. Kind of just looking like an empty game object. But we're gonna move it over here, just so we don't have a bunch of stuff being messy with us. I made a sub-object because I kind of like to keep the sprites below the parent. And so we will say sprite renderer. And let's go find us a piece of a door. Ooh, I'm so glad that I made this a child object, and I'll show you why in a moment. So this is the door base. And we're going to copy that, move up one. We'll call this door top. We'll pull that bad boy up here. And you actually want them to overlap a little bit generally, because if you make it pixel perfect, for some reason the render will occasionally let the background bleed through. And it'll just make you mad. So, closed door is what we're going to call this, and you'll see why in a moment. Although you can probably guess. And we'll go in and we will say open top and close open mid. And so now we can quickly open the door once you have the proper key. How lovely. And so we got collectibles. Now we'll call this an interactable. And so this is, oh god, that's just interactable. It irritates me so much that it's collectible, interactable, or interactable. I don't, English is so weird. Like, what's an ibble? I don't know. It's just, yeah. Okay, so we got our door. We're gonna make this a prefab shortly because we want to actually do something with this door. We want our doors to have keys that you're gonna be collecting. So we're actually going to add in a key. What would we even call this? Well, for laughs, we're gonna call it a keyframe. So yeah, I guess I've got the time while we're autopiloting through this piece to give you a mini life story. Initially at my last job, I got incredibly bored, just absolutely agonizingly bored. And so I started working, like helping the developers there. I was a producer at the time. And eventually I helped enough that my boss asked if I wanted to do this sort of thing professionally, and I thought, holy crap, like, that would be great. I mean, I have no prior education in this sort of thing, and I didn't go to college for it, but, you know, if you want to do that, I definitely won't fight it. So he made me a software developer long before I was even good enough at it yet to justify that, frankly. But, you know, I got lucky that he was willing to trust that I would try my hardest. And that was, again, like 5+ years ago. And then I spent basically the entire time at my last job self-teaching myself while I was in the hotbed, as it were, with deadlines and stuff. So definitely never, like, I guess for me, the reason that it worked out great is I had some really good teachers. Two of the developers actually that worked at my last job really liked. Well, they may not have liked it actually, but they were willing to let me harass them anytime I got stuck on something. But yeah, it's fantastic. I got deeply, deeply lucky. And even now, I mean, I just moved into my new job, and so now technically I'm a senior engineer, and I found out today that I'm about 40% sure that I'm going into DevOps apparently, which will be intense, but welcome. Okay, so we're going to be toggling between these two objects, and let me drag this door, as much as I love where it is right now. It basically means I'm going to be making the tools that other developers use to make things work, which is fine with me. I think that's why I'm being tasked with what I have to do right now at work, because they want to make sure I know what's going on, which is good. I can accept that. We're currently shaded wireframe. We're just going to switch it to shaded so you can see easier. Okay, now we have this keyframe, and what this is going to tell us is what key you need to open that door. And once you have the key, we'll turn on the filled picture, and that's how you'll know that you have the key for it. Now, the one problem with using this Kenny artwork is that it is color-coded, and people who are colorblind are SOL. So what I'm going to do later is just draw some keys that are different shapes. Not the world's hardest problem to solve. But yeah, we got this door, so we're going to Control-Z a few times to send it back where it came from, which was over here. And we are going to add in a door controller. And we're literally just going to call it door. There's no reason to get fancy. I used to put the word controller in literally everything I made, and then I realized if you're going to just put the same word in every class, you might as well get rid of it and just assume it's there. Saves your fingers as you get older. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, one of the big things with getting that previous job switch was I remade the first level of one of our games that was in ActionScript. Terrible language, by the way. In ActionScript, I remade it in Unity and showed it to my boss at the time. I thought he was going to just think it was cute, like I wasn't expecting anything to really come of it. And that was when he asked. I was like, oh, cool. And personally, I don't know if it was for sure me, but I like to take credit for the fact that that company switched over to Unity. Man, Visual Studio is struggling today in terms of staying connected to... I don't care. Just... Okay, here we go. I'm about to pop out Task Manager. The problem with Visual Studio is when it dies, it takes the whole world with it. It was using up 100% of my CPU. Not the best. This is C#. And so the languages that I've worked at on some level, I've used Python to help a friend make some scripts with Maya, the 3D tool. And then Python's okay. I don't really like it. I don't like any loosely typed languages. I like everything to be very focused and literal. And then I've worked in Lua for some WoW stuff. Nothing super cool. At least I don't think so. Sorry, let me get my Visual Studio hooked back up since I had to friggin' delete it from existence. Yeah, if I was going to describe it in 2 words, I would say Absolute Nightmare is pretty spot on for Lua. I'm genuinely shocked that anyone really uses it. So the reason that Lua is a little bit popular, well, I say a little bit, I mean it's used by one of the biggest games in the world, but the reason it's popular is that it is what is called an interpreted language rather than a compiled language. So you can actually edit it live and see your changes in real time. And yeah, people like that. Me, not so much. I don't see it as a benefit. Now, back to the code. So one of the things that I love about typed languages is you can write, private float, I don't know, hair count. In loosely typed languages, you'd see shit like this. And it drives me nuts because it's like, if you have to tell me what kind of object this is in the name of the object, why not just use a language where it's already assigned? Like, and everyone does it. That's the thing. You look at every loosely typed language project, and everyone, all their variables has what it is underscore the name of it. And it's like, if you were already going to do it, then just use a better language. But I'm pampered. If you're going to learn development, C# is fantastic. It's probably, no, it is my favorite language of all the ones I've used. And every time I try a new one, I always think, I wish this was C#. JavaScript was the last one I used at previous job. And again, I wish it was C#. JavaScript is the devil. Huh? Oh yeah, yeah. Not my problem anymore, yay! Although kinda, sometimes I have to help you, but not much. So we have our door, and we need a few things with our door, and there's a few ways. So obviously I didn't go to school for this, so I don't remember the words or I don't recall the terminology for this stuff, but generally speaking, there's processes that you want to follow in languages like C# or anywhere else where you keep things contained in the domains that they need to be in. So you would do something like private bool locked, and I'm going to put an underscore on this and you'll see why in a second. Then you would have a public bool locked. So this thing, I believe, is a property, and this is a field. That makes you... I may be getting those backwards, but if you get them in the right order, it makes you cool in all the coder kids circles. So we're going to say private set is that, and get is return locked. Okay, so I'll explain this real quick. What this does for you is this gives you a private boolean that we're actually going to serialize just so we see it in the inspector window, because private variables can't be seen in this window right here. And what we're saying is we now have a public property called locked. Any object that can get a reference to this door can see the value, but they cannot edit it through this property. They also can't edit the actual field itself. This is really important because when we go to bug test, if we notice our door is locked or unlocked and we can't figure out why the hell that's the case, we don't have to check a billion different files to figure out where our fuck up is. It's somewhere here, almost certainly. So now we've done that, and we're going to create a couple public functions. Public void unlock. And you can actually do this in a couple different ways. You can make it two different functions, like public void lock, which is actually what I prefer doing. Or you could pass a boolean through of saying like whether or not to lock or unlock it. Or yeah, matter of fact, we could say public void set locked state. Maybe even set locked is fine enough. Perfect is the enemy of good, but here we are. So we'll do that. Oh, right. Lock is a protected word, so we'll say is locked. That's fine. I just like it because of the readability factor. Because if you have a function that just says lock and a function called unlock, you know at a glance immediately what they do. But if you see a function that says set locked with a boolean in it, it may not. This is a bad example because it's sort of obvious. But sometimes you'll come back and look at a function and you can't figure out why you're passing a boolean through it. And maybe one of these days, if you happen to be around when I'm streaming in, I'll show you how to get around that problem. But something cool you can do, I am an addict for commenting in code. You can do triple forward slashes? Yeah, we'll go with forward slashes, sure. Triple forward slashes, and that allows you to put in a summary. And so whatever you write in here, let's say sets the door to either locked or unlocked. Now, anywhere else in the code where you hover over this function, it will actually say underneath the function name exactly what it does. And in here where it says parameter, you can put determines door lock state. And now it'll also tell you what this Boolean does when you hover over it. I know you can't see it because the friggin' window capture in Streamlabs, probably Windows fault, but window capture doesn't show you the second layer of windows. It's so stupid, but whatever. Yeah, commenting is an interesting thing. In both jobs now, I found that I comment more than almost anybody else, and I also have a habit of trying to actually update my comments. The reason a lot of people don't comment, at least in the professional space, from what I've seen, I can't speak for everyone everywhere, is sometimes comments get away from you and they end up describing what a function does wrong because you changed it, say, 2 weeks ago or something like that. So a big thing is whenever you change code, immediately look at the comments and make sure they're still right. And when I'm editing a function, I like to delete the comment on the line above what I'm writing. I did. I think that was the one where it was saying things like, this is stupid bullshit and stuff like that. And I thought that was so funny. Somebody narrated it. And I like that they made when they were reading it, they were getting more flustered with like the more exclamation points and stuff that were on it. So good. Oh, right. The reason I put an underscore here is a personal stylistic choice because I think it looks hideous. So if you find yourself in your code going underscore locked equals true, it looks disgusting. And so you realize, oh, I fucked up somewhere. So then you would go back and you would go locked equals is locked rather. And now you're using the right thing. This looks nice as opposed to the underscore thing. Not standard practice. I don't see a lot of people do that. I see a lot of ugly stuff like M underscore and things like that. No, thank you. That's not for me. I like things that just immediately stylistically stick out to me. So now we've got our setLocked function. And what we want to do is we actually need a couple game object references here. Either that or we could do an animator, but because this is a binary state, I'm just going to do game object references. So we got private game objects, open door, private game object, closed door. And we also need private game objects. Excuse me, I had chili dogs and it is really coming back to get me. Private game objects empty keyframe. Private game objects filled keyframe. And then I'm just going to make a note here that keys above door. Whoops. And to door states. There's a ton of different ways you can do comments too. And on these little guys, you can actually do the triple forward slashes to add comments to them as well. I'm going to go through and make them all equal null so that we don't get warnings in Unity later that these are unassigned. And we are going to serialize the fields so that we can see and assign to them in the editor. Man, love the soundtrack. Straws are hard. Actually, my wife is very smart. She got these little rubber stopper things on them so that I don't shatter my teeth when I inevitably miss. Okay, so we got closed door, which I believe is actually the open art. Yes, open door. So closed door goes here. Open door goes here. Then we go into the empty keyframe. Oh, did I just... Yeah, I just put that in the wrong place. No sooner did you compliment me that I did something wrong. It's actually really funny. Like, I haven't seen your code, obviously, but the stuff you were doing right now, like, if you showed that to any indie developer, company that was hiring, I suspect you get a call. Your early work looks really good. Again, this is coming from somebody. I'm not like, I don't want to come from a position of authority and make it sound like I'm some sort of expert who knows the industry or anything, but I have seen what other people do. I've seen what people do who still make probably, made a lot more money than me, and I don't know why, but that's another story. I've seen their trash, and I think what you're already doing is much nicer than what I've seen from people who have gone to fancy school for it. Not everyone, obviously, just I'm speaking anecdotally for the groups that I have worked with. Huh? Yeah, that's fair. I say groups, but really it's one of like 4 people, and conversely, one of the other people I worked with was absolutely astounding, god tier, and I'm stunned that he doesn't just start his own, like, enterprise, as it were. But I think some people are so smart that they don't quite realize how smart they are, which is always sad. Undervalue themselves. I actually, now that I know more about like NAND gates and stuff, all the Boolean operators, I actually really want to go try to make something cool in Minecraft's Redstones. But then I realized going into that to make something is silly when I could just make an actual product and give it to people. So, right, where were we? Oh yeah, let's say we'll make a private function. You don't have to make this a separate function. You could put the code in here, but again, stylistic choice. I want the set locked function to strictly do exactly what it says it does. And we're going to be calling another function inside of it, but I would rather all of the bulk code in that function be in its own place. It'll also make stack traces cleaner. So private void set, I don't know, door art state? You can rename functions later, and modern Unity actually will fix references in the inspector, unlike 2019 and prior. So don't get too hung up. Don't get too hung up on this sort of names. Oh yeah, no problem. You have good sleep. Thanks for hanging out. This weekend also, I'll be streaming earlier in the day because I realize after work most people are trying to get to sleep anyways during the week. So set door art state. We already have is locked, so now... And I'll upload these to YouTube, so don't even worry if you miss anything. Okay, so we have our open and close states for both the key and the doors. And we can actually do this in a sort of lazy way, which is locked. So if the door is locked, we want the open door to be closed. And if it is unlocked, we want the closed door to be opened, as it were. Good night. Empty keyframe set active. And that would be true for locked. And filled keyframe set active would be true for unlocked. Then we'll make a note for ourselves. Show key once you have it. Show empty when you don't. Ooh, you could have the key. Do I want to do that? Because I kind of want the door frame to just signify that you have the key or not. Or the keyframe, I want to do that. So we're going to actually probably separate these out and just do set door state and private void set key state. So these keys are going to be affected by a Boolean that we have not yet actually filed, but we will probably pass it through here. So this one I'm thinking will be a public bool. this is probably gonna end up public later too. Whatever, we'll fix it later when we need to. Public void key state boolean has key. And this is actually an important one to send a boolean through because it is going to be possible in this game for you to lose the key after you have it because it'll be part of your user interface, which is what we can lose while playing. So has key. If you have the key, then the filled state will be true. And if you don't have the key, the filled state will be false. So it'll set the empty off when you have the key, and it'll set the filled on when you have the key. Perfect. And then we will as a memo to myself, unlock when you press up with key in front of it. Oh, let's just do update door state. That makes more sense. Easy peasy. Updates the door art relative to the lock state. And we will add a button. Update door state. And we will add a key state toggle, which is update key state. Yeah, I like that a lot better. I'm not a big fan of the word set, I guess. So we can go back into Unity. And now we got two fancy pants, new functions. Let's get into the game, because I want this stuff to go away once I stop playing. Go through our collectible. And now we got this lovely door. We can set the has key state to true. And then we can invoke the key state. Clearly I have it backwards. Filled is on. Oh. Yeah, that'll do it. I turned off the sprite object rather than the game object. Let's try that again. Okay. Go through our collectible. Stand up here for posterity. So we tell it, we got the key. We invoke. Now the key is filled. In fact, we can go into the scene window and see it even closer. And now that we have the key, we could say update door state is dependent on if it's locked or not. So let's say that we walked down and we pressed up, which we don't have support for yet, but will eventually. And so we'd say, oh, now it is unlocked. And we will update door state. Now the door is open. Then if we say it is locked again for any reason, update door state, it's closed. Et voila. So let's change the default state. It should default to locked. Don't know why I defaulted to unlocked. And we can create a init function. Every time I type init, it auto-completes to on-server initialized, and it just tears my soul apart. Okay, init, and we will say, we're gonna give it a few automatic properties. We'll say bool locked equals true by default, and that's it, apparently. Oh, no, let's also do has key. Bool has key equals false by default. Now what are you complaining about? Nothing important. So now we'll say this dot locked equals locked, and then we will update the door state, and we will update the key state, and we will pass has key through it. This init function is going to be super useful because if we add in saving and loading, we will be able to go through all the initializable. We'll be able to go through all the initializable objects and set their values based on the save data. Currently, we don't have an interface for that, so it would make it actually quite challenging with what we have now. But probably in maybe whatever my next video is. I don't want to say necessarily tomorrow, because who knows. But when the next video happens, we'll be doing interfaces, and that's where we'll hook that up. But in the meantime, we've got our init. By default, it will set locked to true, and it will set the key state to empty. And it'll update the art accordingly. Okay, so with that in mind, is there anything else I want to do for tonight? We've got collectibles, we've got interactables. In fact, let's it doesn't need to be a substate. At least not for now. Maybe later, someday I'll refactor, but probably not for this first, not for a Game Jam game. Okay, so the door is done. Yeah. No, I think we'll leave it there on a high note. I'm gonna go next couple days. I will learn about blendable animations so we can figure out how to do the blinky blinky even while he's running and stuff. Super fascinated about that. And once I know how to do it, then we'll do one on video. That'll be cool. But yeah. As Singing Banana would say, if you've been watching, thanks. If you haven't been, that's okay. That's fine. I don't mind. Potentially see you next time.